Right, I think that's enough. If anybody joins late, they can always catch up as we go along, and the recording will be available as well. So hopefully, if anyone does arrive late, they'll be still able to catch up. So I'd like to start by saying hello to everybody and welcome to Cafe's latest webinar. We are pleased to see so many new faces and also so many familiar faces being able to join in with us today. Hope you are all keeping safe and well in these strange COVID times we find ourselves currently in. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Amy Wilson and I'm Cafe's Family Liaison and Access Officer. My co-presenter today is my colleague who is Cafe's Media and Communications Manager, Mike Rice. The main objective for this webinar is to encourage disabled supporters and their groups and associations where they have them to join in Cafe's annual celebration of access and inclusion and the important roles disabled people play within the footballing world, whether that is as a supporter, an employee, a volunteer, or a decision maker. We want to also highlight the Cafe Week of Action Small Grants Programme, which we first launched for last year's Week of Action. And due to the success, we have implemented it again for this year's event. We want to be able to show how the Week of Action grants will be able to encourage disabled supporters, associations and disabled fans to take part in our ever-growing annual initiative. So before I hand over to Mike, who will start off the webinar, I just want to go over some of the boring bits of webinars, the housekeeping rules. The webinar, as mentioned before, will be being recorded for training and quality purposes from Cafe side, and also we will be aiming to publish either all of the webinar or parts of it to watch again at your own convenience via Cafe's website. As you are all registered as attendees, you are automatically muted upon entering the webinar, but if you wish to ask questions during our question and answer session at the end, please click on the raise your hand button, which should be located on the toolbar at the bottom of your screens. But if it's not, you should be able to do it also by going into the participants list, and it will be a feature that you're able to activate there. And then we will be able to unmute you. If we aren't unable to unmute you, you will be able to unmute yourselves again by going into the participants list. Alternatively, if you don't want to ask your question publicly, you will be able to use the Q&A facility, which again is on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, and you can just type in your question in that, and we will be able to either answer you directly during the Q&A session, or if we're not able to come back to you straight away, we will reply to you via email as we have all your contact details. If it is possible, could you please make sure you put your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box, because it just makes it easier from Mike and I's side of things to be able to keep track of what questions have been asked and who we need to try to answer and who we don't. In the chat facility, we will though share links with our guidance documents around the Week of Action. They will be put in periodically through the event, and these links will also be shared with you after the events as well, so you can read them if you need to at a later date. We were hoping to have closed captions available today, but technical issues have hit, and unfortunately we haven't got those available, so apologies to anybody who was hoping to be able to make use of those. We will aim to be able to get them in place for our next webinar. So I think that's all the dual housekeeping bits. So I'm now going to hand over to Mike, who's going to start off the proceedings today with a brief history on the Cafe Week of Action for everybody. Mike, over to you.
Thanks very much, Amy. And just to echo Amy's words, it's really great to have you all here with us today. As Amy said, a lot of familiar faces, but also some people are meeting for the first time. So great to have you here, and we're looking forward to working with you going forward. So the Cafe Week of Action is a project that we started back in 2013, and it's a project that I've managed ever since then. The Week of Action was born out of Euro 2012, based in Poland and Ukraine. And Cafe delivered a 3-year project in both countries to improve access and inclusion ahead of hosting the tournament, but then also in legacy of the tournament, continuing to improve and make the situation better for disabled fans in both countries, but also disabled people in the wider society. And as part of our legacy project in both countries, we launched the Cafe Week of Action. So it gave clubs, disabled fans, and also outside NGOs the opportunity to celebrate the improvements that had taken place across the time we'd been working in the countries, and also give the stadiums an opportunity to have this time to look to launch new initiatives or welcome new disabled fans to the stadium for the first time. And it really put a spotlight on the topic of access and inclusion for disabled fans. There was a little bit of pushback, I'd say, from some parties who thought, oh, another awareness campaign, but we think the topic's such an important one that it really does need to be heard, and disabled people's voices should be heard. And that's why the Cafe Week of Action was born and has continued to grow ever since, and has become more and more popular right across Europe. After 2 years of the Week of Action just taking place in Poland and Ukraine, we began to receive inquiries from outside of the two countries, from other stakeholders who wanted to get involved and wanted to share their stories and promote total access and what they'd been doing. So we made the decision then to expand beyond Europe, beyond Poland and Ukraine, sorry, and more and more countries, clubs, disabled fans groups have gradually got involved in the Week of Action. We have started now to branch outside of Europe too. There's been some initiatives and celebrations as far as Brazil, the USA, Canada, and New Zealand last year. So it's really good to see the momentum that the campaign's taking on. The Week of Action offers the opportunity for basically for football as a whole to come together and celebrate disabled people. As Amy said, the different roles that disabled people can play within the game, but also the joy of access and inclusion and the benefits that that can bring. The Cafe Week of Action, although it's got our name in it, is not our week, it's your week. It's a week for disabled fans. Everything that we do as an organisation comes back to disabled sports fans and hoping to improve that experience for disabled people. So the Cafe Week of Action, although we'll manage it and coordinate it, it is effectively your week, and we want to do as much as we can to get as many of you involved as we possibly can do during that time. You'll have seen in the information pack there's a long list of suggested activities, which comes from different activities that have taken place previously. And we'd also encourage you to think about your own disabled fans and what would be effective for them, any new innovative solutions that you might be able to implement during the Cafe Week of Action. And just finally on this section, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but the Cafe Week of Action really is a celebration. We know the situation isn't perfect. We know there's a lot of work still to do, but gradually sport and society as a whole is becoming more accessible, more inclusive, and we want to celebrate the good, celebrate the hard work that people are putting in right across the industry, and carry on pushing that message and promoting the importance of total access for all.
Cheers, thank you for that, Mike. As Mike said, although it does have our name associated with it, the Week of Action belongs to everybody who is passionate about improving access and inclusion. So whether that's a individual disabled fan, a group of disabled fans, a registered organisation such as a Disabled Supporters Association, football clubs, national supporters clubs, disabled supporters clubs, NGOs, disability organisations, anybody who enjoys live sport and enjoys going to matches and is a football fan, but is passionate about the improvements that can be made in access and inclusion, is the ones that genuinely own the Week of Action. And it's your chance to shine the spotlight on yourselves and the services and the amenities and facilities that you may have at your venue, or the extra lengths that you go to make sure that disabled supporters are welcome to your stadium, disabled people are able to be employed at your stadium. So yeah, although it's got our name, it definitely belongs to everybody else, and we just facilitate it really. So moving on to the next part is we're going to give more information on the Cafe Week of Action Small Grants Programme. As I mentioned earlier on, we launched this last year for the 2020 Week of Action, and it was successful in as much as it could be in the COVID times that hit around the same time of the Week of Action was due to take place. So we've brought it back again for this year to carry on with that initial success that we had with the programme. So Mike, again, as project manager, is going to speak a little bit further about what the programme is, how you can use that programme, and the main thing that I imagine quite a few would want to know, how you can apply. So Mike, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. So yeah, as Amy mentioned, last year was the first year that we launched the Small Grants programme, and that really came about through feedback from disabled fans and from DSAs. Many of whom wanted to get involved in the Cafe Week of Action, but it found it difficult for one reason or another. We understand, the majority of disabled supporters associations are volunteer-led, and limited funding will be available. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible for you to join the Cafe Week of Action and get involved in the celebration with us. The feedback we'd received was there was a real appetite for that. So we, working with some of our partners who have done similar funding opportunities previously, we devised the Small Grants programme, offering grants of up to €250. And this would then help to go towards any activities or events that you as a DSA or as individual disabled fans would want to run to join alongside the Cafe Week of Action and to promote our shared goal of total access. So to apply, we've tried to make it as straightforward as we can. There's just an online form on the Cafe website, and we can share the link with that again with you. Just a few questions to ask in terms of the activity that you have in mind, the level of funding you'd require for that, and then just a few questions around safeguarding, so whether any children or disabled people will be involved in the activity itself. We will then go through all the applications that we've received, and we'll look to accept as many as we can that fit within our own budget limitations as well. And then we'll get that message out there between us during the Cafe Week of Action. Typically, payments would be in 50% instalments, so we pay you the first half upon accepting your application, and then we would need you to complete a short report. Again, it's an online form. And it's really just a few questions in terms of what happened, any coverage that you may have got through the press or local media, and then to share any photos or videos with us as well, and a short quote about the activities. It's a really straightforward online form, and then that enables us to create a news story about your activity on our website, getting as much attention on your activity and your project as we possibly can, sharing that across our networks on social media, and also sharing that with our partners at UEFA to try and get as much attention on the hard work that you're doing during the Cafe Week of Action. We understand the limitations that are in place around how much a disabled fans group can do in terms of working with their clubs, who obviously have a much larger budget. So we want to help you to put your work in the spotlight and to encourage other disabled fans and other DSAs to get involved as well. We've tried to make the process as easy as we can, but as Amy said, it's a relatively new project for us still. So do come to us with any questions you might have around the process, any difficulties you've had in terms of completing the forms. And we're more than happy to work together on any different requests that you might have in terms of staggering funding or any other support we can do, whether we can provide any sort of quotes from the cafe side or any branding. We can provide you with the Cafe Week of Action banners, cafe logos. There's a whole host of resources that are available. Just come to us and we'll see how we can help one another. But the underlying message really is we want to make it as easy as possible for disabled fans and DSAs to join us in celebrating the Cafe Week of Action. And we hope that the grants process does help to do that. We're always open to feedback, so it may be with the feedback we receive from you on your final report for this year's Week of Actions, that maybe we tailor the process slightly next year. You know, we're more than open to receiving your feedback on that, negative and positive. We just want to use this as an opportunity to help you, and it's a pot of funding that otherwise might not be as readily available there. So we hope that we can help to make a big difference through the small grants programme. And yeah, we'd strongly urge you to apply. We can accept applications up until the end of play next Monday through the cafe website, or you can reach out to us directly and we can go through the process with you as well. But yeah, if you haven't already, I'd strongly urge you to get involved and get an application form in, and we can look to get moving on that as soon as possible.
Cheers, thanks again for that, Mike. To just follow on slightly as well from what Mike has updated everybody with around the Week of Action small grants, they are primarily aimed at disabled supporters and disabled supporters associations. However, it doesn't mean that as a club you would not be able to put in an application, and if we have any funding left over from the pot that we have, which is, as I say, aimed primarily at disabled supporters and disabled supporters associations, we will then look to see if we can offer some additional support to clubs who may just need that little extra bit of funding just to top up the support that they've already got from their own clubs. So if I know there's a couple of people who have attended this morning and also that wish they could attend but were unable to today, that were from clubs. So just to get that message there that we will accept, you are nothing is stopping you to put in your application if you feel that it is needed, but priority will always be given to the DSA members and disabled supporters, as that's what the funding is primarily for. But if we can have extra funding there, we will look to give that to clubs who say who may just need that little support. And with regards to the form, it's online, as Mike said, in English only, but please complete that in your own language if that is easier for you to do so, and can allow you to give us as much information about the event that you are hoping to be able to put on during the Week of Action, because we'll be able to get this translated back into English for our review as well. So yeah, if that's the easiest way for you to do that, please don't worry, and please do complete it in your own language or whichever language you feel more confident in using. And as Mike said, if you need any assistance in completing the form, both my contact details and Mike's contact details were in your agenda packs, which you should have all received earlier this morning. So just reach out to us and we will offer any help that we can in the completion of the forms. So for the next part of the webinar, I'm just going to touch briefly on how, as DSAs and disabled supporters, you may be able to take part in the Week of Action without your club being the ones that are leading it. This is coming from you as disabled supporters and you as a DSA. So I think Mike's touched on it as well, but this year's event is going to be hugely different to how our previous Week of Actions have gone due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But there are still so many ways that disabled supporters and DSAs can get involved in the event and celebrate total access with us. So, for instance, most of life these days seems to revolve around Zoom and Microsoft Teams and other communication tools online, such as Skype and things like that. So why not make use of these tools, and the fact that everybody now seems to be a lot more familiar and comfortable in using these, and arrange to have a watch along of your team's matches with your fellow disabled supporters It is so easy to set one of these up, and again, we can give you advice on how you can go about doing this, but it's just something a little different to the match day experience. It's never going to be able to replicate being at the match and being sat with all your fellow friends. Nothing, unfortunately, at the moment can do that. But a online watch along is a great way to still be able to discuss with your friends and fellow members of your association the performance of your team, to criticise match officials, or if you're in England, to criticise VAR, and to celebrate goals and wins together, or commiserate after defeats. As I say, it's really easy, and they are quite enjoyable as well. And it's just something different to just being sat in front of your television at home or listening on the radio, as you may have done for the past 9-10 months. As well as that, you can utilise Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Skype to host catch-up chats with all your members, making it like a kind of virtual coffee morning. So you can, it doesn't have to be football related, you can just host a coffee morning. People can be there with a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, biscuits, and just chat about anything really, last night's television, how they're feeling in general, just to start that socialising process off again, which is, as we know, such an important part of actually going to stadiums. Is not always the football on the pitch, but being able to talk to fellow fans and friends that you may not see otherwise, apart from that 2-hour spell when you're at the stadium. Zoom can also be used, and Microsoft Teams as well, sorry, for events such as a social night. Instead of making it like a coffee morning, make it a social night where you can host maybe like a quiz night about your team. And if you can, award prizes and stuff. You could also open that out and invite the wider fan base to attend your quiz night, and then turn that into like a virtual fundraising event where non-members of your DSA would donate maybe a couple of euros to your, if you've got like a PayPal account or something like that. And it's a way of still being able to raise funds for your DSA without you being physically outside and doing your usual fundraising activities. Other activities that can be done is you speak with your disability access officer at your club, or the equivalent if you don't have a designated DAO, and work with them to see about if it's possible to host interviews with differently disabled supporters on club websites, club social media, club podcasts, even if your club has those, or interview members of the Disabled Supporters Association to help promote the work that the group does for all disabled supporters. This will have a positive effect of leading to greater awareness amongst the wider fan base, who may not know that there is a DSA in existence at their club, and can raise awareness again on the topic of access and inclusion and how important that is, and can also help as a DSA to increase your membership. And it's something, again, that's pretty easy to organise, and clubs are often really willing to help facilitate that as well. So it's just a relatively easy win-win solution. During the COVID times, we were aware that in quite a few countries, games are being streamed on clubs' own TV stations or on club-own websites. So again, this is something you can maybe work with the club to do, and ask if it's possible in the 10-15 minutes that are on air before kickoff, and the 15-minute spell at half time, whether it would be possible that a promotion of disabled supporters at the clubs, if there is a DSA at the club, or can be made during this period, or a short little talk from somebody about the services and facilities available at clubs, such as maybe a chat with the ADC commentator that is at your club, or a look around the stadium so you can see where the wheelchair user spaces are, for example, or a century viewing room, or easy access seats, things like that. Just a short few minutes that can just really highlight the facilities available at your stadium, and the work that DSAs also do to help improve access and inclusion at the stadium. If it's not possible for that, it could be possible that the commentators themselves are able to read out a statement of support to the Cafe Week of Action, either prior to kick-off, half-time, or even better, during the match itself. If you have your own website as a DSA or social media channels, we would strongly encourage a really simple activity that you can do would be to post statements of support to the Week of Action on there. It's such an easy activity, but it really will help Cafe to spread the word of the Week of Action as well. So if that can be done, brilliant. We'd also ask if do you have social media sites such as Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Utilise those during the Week of Action. Ask your members to share stories on photographs of maybe their favourite match, their favourite ever player, or the best goal that they've ever seen at your club. This, again, can help with the social interaction that has been missing for many disabled supporters since the pandemic started last March. And particularly with so many disabled people having to isolate at home, using your social media channels can just garner conversations and can lead to all other topics of conversation around your football club. And it really does help to lift the spirits as well of disabled fans who may be feeling a little lonely, missing the interaction that they normally get when they go to matches. And again, that is something really simple and easy to achieve. If you don't have the social media channels that your DSA or even as a fan yourself, but you would like to have one to raise awareness of access and inclusion, why not look to create a Facebook page or a Twitter account or an Instagram account? Say social media is not only a great way for you to keep in touch with your disabled fans and your disabled members of your groups, but the wider fan base of your club as well, who, again, like I mentioned earlier, may not necessarily be aware of access and inclusion matters at your club, and it helps to shine a light on the importance of these topics, which we all know as well doesn't just benefit disabled supporters, but can benefit members of the wider fan base in general too. So people who are elderly, people who have younger children who go to matches, and those who are temporarily disabled, such as recovering from a broken leg or knee surgery, something like that. Depending on obviously where you are located, it would be a really good chance during the Week of Action to reach out to other disabled supporters associations within your local area or your regional area, and potentially co-host an event with them, such as if your teams are both playing during the Week of Action, maybe host an online watch along, and so you can have that interaction with opposition supporters as well as your own supporters, and kind of replicate the match day atmosphere as best as you can while still being sat in your front room at home. Or maybe see if it's possible to work with other DSAs to host your own online webinars about access and inclusion for football supporters within your area. Again, this could be something Cafe can offer help and support with, if potentially we may be able to even join in for 10-15 minutes if you would like us to. Mike mentioned it a bit earlier on as well about local media outlets. If you have local newspapers, local radio stations within your area, reach out to them and see if it's possible to self-promote your DSA and the work that you do at your club. Or if you're just an individual supporter, or why not see if the local paper or the local radio station would be willing to interview you about your experiences of going to matches as a disabled fan. These interviews can often be really powerful and really helpful in making society realise how it is for disabled people to go to matches and the importance that going to support your team often has in the lives of disabled people. So we're not saying that this will work, but there's no harm in trying to reach out to local media outlets and see what they may be able to offer in support for you. And another, again, slightly COVID-19 related item would be to work with your club, if you have one at your club, a foundation or charity, other fan groups within the club, or the main supporters group, or local regional supporters groups if you have them, or a local disability organisation, to look to provide small care packages to members of your disabled fan base, particularly those who may be still having to shield due to their medical condition or medical advice that they've received. Again, it doesn't have to be anything massively fancy, but just a small little token gift can really help a supporter who is feeling a little alone at the moment. So it's worth seeing if that could be possible, and we would love to share news stories around things like that, because it's such a good news story to come out of what is and has been obviously really difficult times for many, many people. And finally, you could, if you don't have a DSA at your club, use this time to maybe start the creation of one. You could liaise with other fans, differently disabled fans at your club, to see if there's interest and to see if what could be put together. You can speak with your DAO to see how they would find having a DSA, and if they would welcome having a contact with disabled supporters who can help them in their role to improve access and inclusion in the club. And obviously Cafe, again, will be more than willing to offer support and guidance. We do have guidance documents on the creation of disabled supporters associations, and in my role as fan liaison officer, I'm more than happy to offer assistance where possible. And if a DSA then does become created as a week of action activity, my on the media and comm side would again love to promote this on our website and through our contacts via social media, and you will then go as global, I suppose. Hopefully you go global. So just to follow on slightly as well, just a little bit of information on how Cafe can support the participation in the Week of Action from disabled supporters and disabled fans. So to follow on from what Mike was saying, we obviously have the Small Grants Programme, which is hopefully will be a really helpful tool for many disabled supporters associations and disabled fans to use. And as I mentioned previously at the start, we have our Week of Action information pack, which I think Mike has shared links to in the chat. But as I mentioned as well, we will also share links in the follow-up emails that we'll be sending out either later today or tomorrow. So you can access these here. These are also on our website as well. Mike touched on it briefly as well earlier. We can provide you with our newly designed Week of Action graphics, and also graphics of Max Access. So for those who aren't aware who Max Access is, he is Cafe's mascot, and he's undergone a bit of a transformation in recent weeks. Mike may be able to give a little bit more information in a minute about that, but Max has definitely changed his appearance of late. So we will be able to provide again some graphics which you can use for posts on social media, any merchandise that you may be able to purchase ahead of the Week of Action, either with a Cafe grant or without a Cafe grant. They can be used on your website, or there's so many ways you can use the graphics. If these are what you would like, please get in touch and we can share those with you. If you are going to make use of your social media, please tag Cafe into any posts that you make. I will, again, in the email I will send out post-webinar, give details of all our social media channels that we have. So we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It may not be the most suitable, but we will still share details just in case you wish to use it. So yeah, if we can then pick up on any posts that you do, we will then be able to retweet them and share your posts from our accounts to our networks across Europe, which will raise greater awareness of not only you as an organisation or you as a disabled fan, but your activity that you have done as part of the Week of Action. And we also would encourage that you use our hashtag, which is hashtag total access. But again, I'll detail everything in the follow-up email on this. With regards to statements of support, we're happy to be able to provide a draft text for you to use, which can either be put on your website, put on social media, or as I mentioned earlier on in the talk, it can be hopefully read out by a commentator during your live streaming. We will happily send those out to you at the start of the Week of Action for you to use as you see fit. And we will also happily send you some draft set text that you could use for social media posts, which you could use in conjunction with our graphics. And again, this is a really easy activity that DSAs and disabled supporters can do to show their support to the Cafe Week of Action. As I also did mention about, this is a chance to maybe set up a social media account for your DSA or for yourself as a disabled fan if you want to have maybe a designated account just to talk about access and inclusion at football stadiums across Europe. And again, please contact both Mike or myself and we will be able to offer some advice on how you can do this and the kind of content that you may want to look to share to engage not only disabled supporters, but again, the wider fan base of your club. So again, they are aware of access, inclusion, and the facilities and services available at your stadium. Share any photographs, videos, links to articles that you may have been tagged in yourselves or been written about you from your club or local media, and share them with us. Again, we will happily promote these, share these via our social media channels. You may even be included in your own designated cafe website article, and you could possibly end up in the UEFA report, which we have to provide every year after the Week of Action to UEFA for them to see the wide-reaching range of the Week of Action and the impact the initiative is having across Europe. So again, as Mike has mentioned, and you're probably fed up of hearing the message, but please do let us know what events you are hoping to do or definitely will be doing, and where it is possible, Cafe will give as much support as we are able to help you achieve the most successful activity that is possible. We know it's not going to be easy in COVID times, and we appreciate the fact that you are still willing to be able to attend an event, and you want to celebrate total access and celebrate your own achievements as DSAs and disabled fans, and we would want to encourage that as well. So not only with the Week of Action grant, but with also the support that we can give via our own social media or just advice from Mike or I, that we were more than happy to do that. And as I said, your contact email addresses for Mike and I are in the webinar, and most will already have my email address from receiving the invite to the webinar earlier today. So now we've got about 15 or so minutes, so we've got time to open the floor to anybody who would like to ask a question or would like some clarification over points that we've raised during what Mike and I have said. Oh, we have a question on the chat. Have Cafe thought about contacting programs like The Last Leg, which is on, for people who aren't aware, it's a program that's on English television on the terrestrial channels, sorry, about the Week of Action. Is it okay? And is it okay to tweet to raise the profile of total access? More than happy to tweet anything that you want to tweet around Week of Action. And Mike, have you got anything about the suggestion?
Yeah, it's a really good question. and it's something that we're looking to do more on, just around the Cafe Week of Action, but also around our wider works, to develop more of a media presence. And the last leg, for those that haven't seen it, is predominantly disabled presenters. It was launched around the Paralympic Games in London in 2012, and has become a really popular mainstream show since then. Not just around disability, but hosted by disabled people, putting disabled people in that spotlight. So it's a really good point. One of the things I mentioned, we are looking to grow our media presence in that way. The Week of Action, because there's so many activities taking place, it is the time that more and more eyes are on Cafe, but also on the topic of access and inclusion and on disability within sport. So it's around this time that anything you get out there will get more attention than it might do at other times in the year. So it is the ideal opportunity to coincide anything with that. In terms of the last leg, specifically in the UK, our partners at Level Playing Field run their weeks of action based in England and Wales that coincide with the Cafe Week of Action. Theirs run for 2 weeks, ours just runs with their second week as the wider European celebration. So I couldn't speak on behalf of Level Playing Field to say what they're doing in terms of reaching out to media outlets such as that, but I know that is something that they are actively looking to improve on as well. And on the feature, Is It Okay, that they have on the last leg, it's generally an opportunity for people to ask questions. It used to be just around disability questions that people were unsure about, so it would be maybe is it okay, and then a question around terminology to use around disability, or is it okay to, for example, would it be okay to treat a disabled person differently to a non-disabled person? And there'd be an open, frank discussion then around that topic. And again, that's something that we are looking to improve on ourselves going forwards, in terms of giving people that opportunity to have that open discussion. We'd rather have the discussion that might be a little bit difficult sometimes to have, but we'd rather have that discussion than for there to be any stigma or uncertainty around the topic of access and inclusion and disability. You'll have seen through the work that we do, we promote the social model of disability, which I know not all organisations do follow, but it is good to have that dialogue to talk about why we say the words that we say, why we do the things that we do. And I think through social media might be a really powerful way of doing that. So while it may not be a Week of Action activity, it is certainly something on the agenda that we can look to do going forwards for sure.
Thanks, Mike. We've had another question into the Q&A. Thank you for that one. John, is there a short video clip available from Cafe that could be used on local social media or websites? This can be about Cafe work generally, or specifically about the Week of Action. The answer to that question is we do. But I will hand this one over to Mike, who will be able to give more information. But I will just point out that we can share links. I can share links with you in the follow-up email about this as well. But Mike can give a lot more background on this because it was his baby.
Yeah, so you may have seen ahead of last year's Cafe Week of Action, we published it's about a minute long clip, an animation video we worked on with UEFA. And that was to celebrate 10 years of partnership between Cafe and UEFA, working together to improve access and inclusion within football. The joy of the video is that even though last year's Week of Action was largely cancelled, it's quite a timeless one. So we're still more than happy to share that video out there. You'll see a lot of it on our social media channels for sure, in the run up to the Week of Action and during the Week of Action. But yeah, we can definitely share that with you as well. So you can share that on your own channels and maybe share with your clubs and encourage your clubs to do the same. We can get all that across to you after the webinar, no problem. In terms of a specific video for the Cafe Week of Action, we haven't got that for this year's one. However, we would be really keen to receive videos from your activities that we can then create a larger video showing the reach of the Week of Action and the activities that do take place under the Week of Action. So it might be that we don't have that video till next year's initiative, but please do try and get some video clips of your activities so we can showcase them in that way.
Thanks, Mike. Another question has been received from John. Don't know that we've got two Johns, so I'm only seeing John, so I don't. Apologies to which John this is. We have a virtual program at the moment, and I've already prepared an article for this. Would Cafe like to have an input into this also? And our club do a TV slot for season ticket holders. If possible, I will try to have an input into that pre-match chat. Would we be able to have a link to the video that we could broadcast during this? With regards to the video, John, yes, as we've just touched on there, we will share the link to the video for you, so you can share that onto the club for hopefully that they can get that to their media departments for them to embed into any work that they're going to do around whichever game it is that you will have during the week of action. And Mike, could you want to answer around the programme article?
Yeah, definitely. So if you'd like to share the article with us, we'd be more than happy to have a look over and give any information that you might need to support the article. We can definitely provide a quote as well to explain a little more about the initiative and the celebrations that are taking place around it. Do just send it on, and we'd be more than happy to help with that, definitely. We also have a template statement of support that we've drafted, and we can share that out as well. So maybe, I don't know, if you'd like to use that as a base for something to edit and add more detail into and maybe share with your clubs, we'd be more than happy to share that with you too.
No, you're welcome. Thanks, John. I don't think there's any questions in the Q&A. No, not at the moment. Does anybody else have a question that you would either like to type in the Q&A or actually physically speak it to us? And if you want to do that, just use the raise your hand facility. So if you just want us to go over something again that we mentioned earlier that you may have not been particularly clear on, and just want a little bit further understanding, or you have sort of ideas that you just want to check if it's okay to do during the week of action or anything like that, please use this time now. So we've got just under 10 minutes that we can dedicate to this section. But obviously, if you think of questions, as it always tends to happen when you're sort of put on the spot, you think of the question 25 minutes later or something. It happens all the time. It's natural. If you do think of something later on today, tomorrow, a week on Thursday, whenever, just drop us an email and we'll be able to offer our opinion and our advice and our support to you on whatever the subject is regarding the week of action. So does anybody have questions?
I'd just say again, if you are you haven't made your mind up yet about whether to join the week of action, or you're still contemplating how you could get involved, I'd really encourage you to take this opportunity to do so. It really is an ideal time to put yourselves and the hard work that you do in the spotlight. And it may be that there's disabled fans who haven't maybe come across your organisation yet. We can really get more attention on you and the work you do, and hopefully then lead to much greater involvement with disabled fans and more disabled fans getting involved.
We do have a question. When will decisions be made and communicated on this grant application successful or not? We are aiming to respond to everybody within, is it 5 working days, is it, Mike?
So we've set a deadline for ourselves of 5 working days. We will aim to get back to you much sooner. And John, I know I need to come back to you specifically on a question you raised, so I will come back to you today with a bit more information on that. We did extend the application window by a week, so that's thrown off some of the the deadlines we'd set ourselves. A couple of the deadlines would have actually been after the week of action had already started. So we will just get back to you as soon as possible and start to process that first 50% payment, or answer any questions you have around the payments, anything that we could work with better on that.
Yeah, and on the payment front as well, a bit of a learning from last year. We understand better the questions that we need to ask anyone who has been successful this year in terms of banking information. We encountered a couple of difficulties, obviously making payments to accounts across Europe. Not everyone follows the same sort of mechanisms. So we do now know what information we need to ask initially. So we can ensure then that the payment will go out as quick as it possibly can, and it will not be held up or returned back to Cafe, and then we have to reissue the payments and stuff. So hopefully payments will be received much more streamlined and quicker for this year's events as well. Kim has asked a question. Hi, Kim. If I am right in thinking you will provide us with some information which we could use for websites, etc. Yeah, definitely, Kim. We can give any graphics, so the week of action graphics, the max access graphics, we could share those with you. We can give ideas for statements of support, which you can either just use as is or adapt and make it a bit more specific to yourselves as a DSA. And we can also send some text which you can use to be for social media, so for your tweets or for Instagram or for Facebook, depending on which is your preferred methods. And obviously for the social media posts, the Twitter posts, we will make sure that their character length is fitting in with the character restrictions that Twitter have, and we may be able to make a slightly more detailed post for a Facebook account, because obviously that's not character restricted in the same way. But yeah, we can share anything like that with you. I'll speak to you separately about that if you want, and we can discuss what kind of things we can do for you on that one. But a lot of information will go out as well post this webinar. I'll say either later today or early tomorrow with links and stuff like that, but we can make specific things for you as well if you need them. Mike, have you got anything to add to that?
Just to add on top, yeah, if you'd like a quote from Cafe to support any of the works that you're doing, do just let us know and we can get that across to you, no problem.
Brilliant. I think that may be all in terms of questions. Oh, no. Oh no, it was just Kim saying great. That threw me then, Kim. Thank you. Not a problem. You're most welcome. So we will be in touch with a lot more information for you. With the deadline being of close of play Monday for applications, please do feel free to reach out to Michael or myself or both. Where we can, we will help in terms of completion of the application form. So help with what kinds of detail we're looking for, anything like that. And yeah, I think it could be a really, really successful week of action for so many disabled supporters, associations and disabled fans as well for this year. So it is different. It has to be different with the current situation, but it doesn't mean that it still can't be a really great celebration of disabled supporters and their associations, the work that you do in terms of helping improve access and inclusion and making access and inclusion a wider topic amongst your club and amongst your fan base and amongst your local communities as well. So we're looking forward to receiving your ideas and working with you and making your events and activities as successful as they can be. So I'm just going to quickly wrap up now. So on behalf of Mike and myself and Cafe team in general, we would like to thank you all for coming and well, not coming as such, but you know what I mean, attending today's webinar online. We hope that you found the session useful and informative, and it's given you some food for thought for potential further ideas and inspiration on how you as disabled stakeholders can get involved in Cafe Week of Action 2021. Again, just that reminder, please share details of activities planned or proposed activities with us so we can further promote these across our channels and to as many of our stakeholders as possible. And do not hesitate to contact myself and Mike with any further questions that you may have or any additional advice or guidance that you may require. Cafe will be hosting more online webinars throughout the year. We will be covering a varied topic of subjects, including disability language and terminology, the importance of match day feedback, and value of having disabled supporters associations. We've got no dates set yet for any of these, but further announcements will be made on Cafe website and our social media channels ahead of the next webinar. So keep your eyes peeled on all of our channels, and we hope that you'll be able to join us in future webinars. So just a quick thank you again for joining today. And hopefully it won't be too much longer that we will be able to have a week of action meeting in person at a conference or something like that. But in the meantime, thank you for using Zoom today and taking the time out of your day to join us. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we are really, really looking forward to celebrating total access with as many of you as possible during March. So thanks again, and keep in touch, and we'll see you soon, and stay safe, everyone.